Hi, my name is John Garfield. This is the Releasing Kings newsletter. It's September 1st, 2017. This week I want to talk to you about intentional reformation. We're loading up to go to the Netherlands in a little less than a month now to release something in Europe. And God's people are in an amazing transition right now around the world to embrace our mandate to disciple nations. It's not business as usual, and it's both exciting and confusing because this promise is so big. Just listen to Genesis 12, starting in verse 2. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. And it goes on to say, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. That's part of our covenant promise. And then in Psalm 2, verse 7, he told me, you are my son today. I've become your father. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance. In other words, every nation can be our inheritance. And then Matthew 28, the Great Commission, Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of nations, all nations. So I just was, talking to the Lord, and I said, how do we transition to discipling nations from where we're at? And what are you saying to your people about this? And you can ask them the same thing. It's fun, and our Father loves to talk to his sons about asking for the nations. So I put a great graphic in the newsletter that's kind of summarized what the Lord spoke to me. And so in the beginning, it's have a vision for it. The first thing I heard was to embrace the breadth of God's promise to bless nations and have a vision to do it. We are not just getting people into heaven. We are here to fill the earth with his glory and redeem cultures by solving practical and political problems that the whole world faces. This starts with each of us bringing our nation before God in prayer. So the second step is really interceding for it strategically, and we found a great intercessory tool called the Courts of Heaven that make that practical. So the second step is networking with those who already have an ear to hear this mandate in the Spirit, and intercessors are right now flocking to this mandate. And there's an open door to network prayer with those who have the authority to do it, the ecclesia or his church. So Robert Henderson wrote a book called Unlocking Destinies from the Courts of Heaven, and we've been working with Beverly Watkins quite a bit lately. That's a great place to start. So the third area is just networks. There's another dimension to networking in addition to prayer. The world is full of people who already have the capacity to embrace big visions as seers and entrepreneurs. In other words, they can see what's happening. They are not typically in the pews on Sunday morning, yet they have been prepared by God for exactly this hour. And some are saved and some are not. But they all have a heart to cooperate with the Father's mandate to bless and disciple nations. Now here's a secret, I don't want you to miss this. When we make this vision plain to disciple nations and take steps to articulate it practically in terms of goals, it has this evangelistic pull. And when we put the kingdom first and lift up Jesus as the King of Kings in doing this, everything needed starts to appear, and all men are drawn to this vision and the fruit of it. So there is a very strong sense of evangelism in this whole thing. So the other thing is activating books. Nations, like each of us as individuals, have destinies or books which can be fulfilled as sheep or missed as goat nations. So our job is to understand what's in that book, put it in writing, and contend for it. When heaven is depicted in the Bible, nations and kings are present and they're offering their worship. So from a very practical standpoint, we are bravely writing down what we understand from the Lord about the Netherlands book and the calling on the Dutch people, and we're taking this message to Europe. So we're planning intercession via the courts of heaven and finding people whose hearts are already on this page. And our draft of the Dutch book is linked in the newsletter. It's very interesting. I encourage you to take a look at it. So this idea of intentional reformation, can you see the connection between discipling nations and Reformation? 500 years since Luther. We all love and embrace revival, but God is sounding a much bigger trumpet of Reformation. So this year, exactly 500 years since Luther's Reformation, And there are stirrings in every nation as God begins to stir us. And in every mountain that's taking place right now, it's evident in politics, in the media, in agriculture, medicine, business, education, arts and entertainment. Every area of culture is being shaken or stirred, or there are exploits happening, and great victories and great warfare at the same time are happening. So the bottom line is very simple. God's kingdom is being established with grace in every mountain to bless people and nations. It's time for us to discern the times and the seasons and intentionally have goals to cooperate and co-labor with the Father's vision to disciple nations toward a reformation. So what's my role? And I want to suggest that this seems like a small question, but it's actually the biggest question. We each have a book, we each have a destiny, we each have a role in what God is doing. And we have a Father who's inviting us to put our hand to the plow and co-labor with Him to see our book and our nation's book fulfilled. And our greatest challenge in this invitation to connect the dots between my personal destiny and the call on my nation. And to make my contribution in my mountain and offer it up to my Father as worship. So in Releasing Kings, we use a heart plan to intentionally open books and see what God has written in the hearts of people. And it works the same way in nations. You're invited to a kingdom party by God Himself. So the last question is, can we do it? Absolutely. The mandate from heaven for reformation of nations is a daunting task. Paul said it best, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So right now His eyes are searching throughout the earth for those who will say yes to this greatest adventure. I want to encourage you to volunteer. Have a great week. God bless.